Then there's lots of clustering-based methods that we can. I don't know if we need to look at it because we have looked at clustering for quite a number of different algorithms, and but anyway, the basic intuition is the outliers may not belong to any cluster or farther away from the closest one. And we know that the smaller clusters could also be outliers. So an object is outlier with 3 conditions, 1, 2, 3. One is doesn't belong to any cluster, this example, and we can use a density-based algorithm like OpSticks or dbScan or Denclu to find such clusters. Second case, the cluster is far away from its closest cluster. We can use k-means. Then partition the data points into clusters. Then for each object O, assign an outlier score based on this. The distance of the O to this cluster versus the average distance of this cluster is larger than this is. Even though it's within one cluster, it may still be an outlier. For small clusters, case 3, when the outliers actually form a small or sparse cluster, which in this case we still think those clusters going to be somewhat. First, they will be very small, and second, they could be further away from major normal data points. So this find CB-loaf algorithm does detect outliers in small clusters. The intuition is to compute, to really benefit from the observations that we just mentioned. For each data set, we assign a CB-loaf score. If object P belongs to a large cluster, then this score is just the cluster size times the similarity between P and the cluster. However, if P belongs to a small cluster, then the BF-loaf score is the cluster size times the similarity between P and the closest large cluster. What you can see, this BF score going to be, CBF score going to be very small for outliers, because first of all, its cluster size is small, and second of all, the similarity between this cluster and the closest large cluster has to be small because they're far away. So CBF score, low CBF score, going to help you to find outliers.
Is this called the collective outlier case?
You can, yes. This could be a collective outlier too. Yes, it could be. But there's more complex situation than this for collective outliers. That's a good observation. I think we kind of all mentioned this. Cluster-based methods have strengths and weakness, computational cost, and there is a very low learning curve. There are very low data requirements for you to use clustering methods. However, the effectiveness and a high computational